Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast, coming at you live on a Wednesday.
Live on a Wednesday.
Got a fun episode for you today. Going to go through our list of the top 10 rookies for Dynasty incoming rookies this year. So kind of have a question of the day that ties into that for you, Jell. You and I are probably two of the most notorious people in our home league for going pretty heavy on the rookies. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
A little bit of
more often than not, it doesn't. But I want to know, we're going to start the show on a positive note. What incoming rookie have you been super high on in the past that actually paid off for you?
Oh boy. I have not had a chance.
It can be for Dynasty or just regular redraft.
I mean, I guess let me jump over to my pick last year for our Dynasty League and thinking 50% contributor last year up until the end of the year. That was Javonte Williams. The fact that I was able to get him with he ended up being my first pick, but I made a nice trade to be able to acquire AJ Brown. So I fell back in the draft about 5-6 slots. Still, it was able to get Javonte Williams, I believe, at the 8 or 9 pick somehow. So going forward, I think Javonte Williams is going to be an absolute stud. He looks to be the number one back going forward in Denver. What he did show to everybody, especially me as the owner, is that he can handle that number one role. When Melvin Gordon was out, some of the statistics from Javonte Williams that are incredibly encouraging going forward. Just the number of not necessarily broken tackles, but tackles missed. He led the league in percentage of tackles missed in the league last year. So yeah, he wasn't the number one workhorse back, but he showed that he can be based on some of those abilities. Even with splitting time with Melvin Gordon last year, he still put up some halfway decent numbers. And when he was the bell cow, when Melvin was out, he looked like he could anchor an RB1 spot going forward, if not, maybe borderline RB1, RB2. So very, very happy with Javonte Williams, grabbing him as a rookie. I was actually also real quick touch on his UNC teammate, Michael Carter. When Michael Carter got some playing time last year, finally, he was the feature back, he actually put up some pretty good numbers. Obviously, that was ruined by somebody we're going to talk about coming up, Breece Hall, with the Jets taking Breece Hall. So I was feeling really good about the Michael Carter pick as well that I made. Because when he did play, he was productive, but shit changes and it's the Jets. Of course, they're going to screw me in one way or the other. So, right. but no, Javonte Williams has to be, at least in recent memory, one of the real nice rookies I've taken.
I've got two guys that I want to throw out there. One was a little bit of a slow play, I guess. Somebody I was really high on in college, had him on my college fantasy team, and then transitioned over to the San Francisco 49ers, and that was Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
Deebo Samuel, I was super high on, showed a ton of flash as a rookie, but just couldn't stay healthy. And then finally in his third year this last year, just came onto the scene in record fashion. I mean, he was just an absolute monster for fantasy purposes, rushing touchdowns, receiving PPR. I mean, he can pretty much do anything on the field. So he's somebody that I was a little bit skeptical on after his first 2 years, just the injury bug. I mean, when he was on the field, he was awesome, but just had trouble staying on the field. So he was somebody that really high on as a rookie and definitely paid off. And the other one was Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson was somebody that I got in the later rounds of our dynasty draft. And he's somebody I had also on my college fantasy team. So I knew how phenomenal he was and just absolute monster. And luckily have both of those guys on my dynasty team now. So pretty pumped about that. And got a pretty decent track record with the wide receiver rookies coming in, but running backs are an area I definitely struggle a little bit with the rookies.
It's crazy to think about if you just do just overall dynasty rankings, all of the NFL, you can make a pretty strong argument that two of the top 3 or 4 were teammates at LSU with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And Joe Burrow too. He's going to be one of those top quarterbacks that's going to be, for dynasty rankings is going to be up there. So we'll get more into the overall dynasty rankings as we get a little bit closer to the season, but crazy to think about how stacked that team was, along with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well.
Yeah. Not still has yet to prove himself in the NFL, but there's always time to change that around.
It's only he's going into year 3. Maybe this is when he breaks out. We'll see. No Tyreek Hill there. Maybe now he breaks out.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Dead Arm Sports, YouTube Live on Mondays and Wednesdays. You can check us out there in the evenings. We got the chat going, so you can ask us any questions you want related to topics we're discussing on the show or any questions that you'd like to have answered. Draft season is upon us. A lot of dynasty drafts have already taken place or about to take place. Redraft will be coming up here in the next month and a half to 2 months. So if you have any questions on where you're sitting in the draft, guys you'd like to take or thinking about taking in that spot on a spitball between the two of us, we can hopefully direct you in the right direction there. Gel can be found at Das Gel. I can be found at Das JPEG. That's at DASJEL for Gel, at DASJPEC for Josh. If you're not watching YouTube, you got to watch Gel's hand signals here for our DAS. The struggle is real. Subscribe, rate, Bob. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Send us a screenshot of that review. We'll get you some sticker swag like yours truly has on his water bottle here. So a nice DAS sticker. So you can we'll send those out to you for free. So just make sure you write a review, send it to us, and we'll get you all swagged up. Gel, you have a question before we dive into our top 10 rookies? Is that
yeah, correct? I mean, it's in, we're talking dynasty rookies and how we've drafted in the past, or how you maybe are considering drafting going forward. Just in general, when you're drafting rookies, if we're talking dynasty, sticking with dynasty,
yep.
Would you prefer would you take a running back or a wide receiver higher? Let's say you have 2 guys graded the exact same. Where do you typically land? Because, in redraft, you typically would lean running back, right?
Yeah.
But dynasty, the difference can be whether that wide receiver or running back has the 5th-year option. Like Najee, Travis Etienne, they've got a 5th-year option. That makes a difference in how you're drafting them. If you're looking at longevity, same thing with like Zeke from a few years ago. Wide receiver, same thing. So, depending on where they're drafted for, if they're drafted in the first, you got that 5th-year option. I guess just, do you have any general thoughts where you like to typically go, whether that's wide receiver, running back, if you've got 2 guys graded neck and neck?
Yeah, if it's just a rookie draft, obviously take a look at your team makeup. So that's a huge thing to start off. But if it's a fresh startup dynasty draft, I'm more often than not probably going to lean a rookie wide receiver just because the shelf life is a lot longer than a running back. A running back, you're going to have rarely do rookies really bust onto the scene their first year. We've seen a lot of wide receivers the last couple of years bust onto the scene their first year that you can get a lot of play out of them. Sometimes these running backs are buried a little bit on the depth chart or have a Melvin Gordon in front of them that's stopping them from reaching their full potential, where you might have to wait a year or 2 for them to really take effect into that team. And then by that point in time, like you said, if they're a first round running back, they've got 3 years left with that team and then they're looking for a payday. You might have a couple franchise tag years, but typically running backs start to fall off to their, mid 20s, the 26, 27-year-old range. You start to see a little bit of a decline start. Whereas the wide receivers, it's usually after year 30. So For Dynasty, I like going wide receiver rookies. If you have just an absolute stud, surefire rookie running back coming in like Jonathan Taylor was a couple years ago, or when Saquon was coming in, Adrian Peterson in years past, that you know is going to be just absolutely phenomenal, then yeah, you would go ahead and reach for them a little bit. But typically the safer play is going to be that stud wide receiver.
I think Saquon's kind of the perfect example here, where he was a absolute stud right away, but we've seen over the last 2 years basically been worthless. As an owner of him, I understand how worthless he's been over the last 2 years. So shit. So I tend to agree with you in that sense, but also at the same time, you could say, okay, let me get the high end running back every year and just keep restocking. Because if you've got just continuous short, like a continuation of short life or short shelf life, this is kind of a weird, I don't know exactly how to put this, but short shelf life running back that is going to last 4 years, and you keep drafting accordingly, then that probably should pay off. So if you've got those high picks and just keep taking running backs, you can continue to feed that position, where wide receivers are certainly more high-end wide receivers are certainly more abundant out there, where you can you're not going to make up for a Justin Jefferson. A loss of Justin Jefferson, you're not going to make that up. But your wide receiver 2s/flex type of guys, you can rotate guys in and out all season long for years. So that's kind of where I get tripped up, where I could see myself going either way. I tend to still lean running back, but your long-term play is wide receiver. You have to almost commit. If you're going to go running back high, you pretty much have to commit to go running back high almost pretty much every year, every other year for your first pick.
Which is hard though, because if there's a good running back out there, that's your 101 in dynasty drafts. That the running back is going to be that first pick every year if there's somebody that's up there. So you have to have a pretty high pick, whether that's you trading up to get into that top 1, top 2 spot, which it's going to cost you a little bit to get up there. So that's also what is a little bit tougher, where usually you have 5, 6 wide receivers you can take a shot on too. That's a little bit better. You don't have to trade up to get into that.
Yeah. If you're drafting in the middle of the first round, your play is probably wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That's just sheer numbers, how that works out. But if you're I guess exactly. I don't want to repeat what you said. So yeah, I think that's probably about right.
Before we jump in here, Joe, sipping on anything fun. I took a big old swig of water and realized, wasn't sure if you were on the water train or having a beer.
Oh, I'm going to go 50-50 water, Miller Lite, pretty close to the same thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Flavored water.
Yeah. Mio. Miller Lite flavored Mio.
Surprised they don't have a beer flavored Mio.
I'm not. That would be disgusting.
All right.
Do you think Soda Streams?
Yeah.
What if they have like a beer flavored for the non-alcoholic beer flavor?
Maybe.
No, I don't know. Yeah. Wouldn't get the head.
No.
Always want the head.
Always. All right. Top 10 rookies for Dynasty. Joe and I each have 10 guys. Maybe throw an honorable mention at you later on in the episode. Haven't seen each other's lists, so curious to see if we're pretty uniform throughout the top 10 or where we're sitting. So I'll throw it over to you, Joe. Who's your number 1 rookie ranking for Dynasty coming in this year?
Yeah, this one was pretty easy for me. It's Breece Hall for the Jets out of Iowa State. He almost came out the previous year. Iowa State had a pretty crappy year, so he stuck around with Brock Purdy, trying to make one final run at At least in the
Wasn't
conference,
Purdy.
it was not Purdy. Pretty sure Brock ended up going undrafted, so even less Purdy for him. But yeah, he was a pretty easy number one overall for me. I mean, it'll be right off the bat a pretty, it'll right off the bat probably a timeshare with him and Michael Carter. Just knowing how. Yeah, I am. I need a few. I need a few points out of this guy before I cut him. But I mean, eventually, Brees, the more talented back, more pure back, and a great receiving back, is going to take over to probably a 75-25 share with Carter. So, I mean, he's probably the best receiving back in this draft. I guess. Was it? I guess let me kick it over to you before I ask this question. Was Brees your number one as well? And then I've got to follow.
Without a doubt, Brees was the number one overall on my rookie rankings for pretty much everything you've said. He was the top running back in the draft this year. Great receiving back, and it's scary to say and kind of put out there, but I think the Jets offense is going to take a big step forward this year with Zach Wilson. Got some pieces on the line. Again, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, we'll talk about him in a little bit. I'm sure he'll be in our top 10. So they've got a pretty decent offense, and no better way to jumpstart that offense than with a running back who's very solid. So yeah, without a doubt, he's my number one.
You mentioned how, this isn't my follow-up question, but you mentioned how impressed you were with the Jets draft, grabbing some O-linemen and Garrett Wilson. I'm sure you, as a Bears fan, probably extremely jealous of how the Jets drafted, given that the Bears did nothing for Justin Fields.
I don't want to talk about it.
No, I guess my follow-up question to this then is, day one, Breece Hall, low-end RB1 status? Or would you go that far? I mean, how does he compare to Najee day one?
Obviously, keep an eye on training camp. We'll bring you tons of news, so make sure you're subscribing to the DOS podcast so we can let you know where everybody's standing on that throughout the training camp season coming up here. But I would probably put him in more of that RB2 level flex play. I think week one scares me a little bit. Like you said, I think Michael Carter is going to be involved. I don't think Breece is going to get the reins right away in this offense. He's going to have a heavy workload with it, but it scare me a little bit week one to put him into that RB1 spot. I would hope you have somebody a little bit more solid and safe to put into that spot.
But you are ready to start him week one.
Yeah.
Whether that's flex or RB2.
Correct. Yep.
I think that's perfect. RB1's too much unless you're really, really weak at running back, but he may be able to climb maybe during that bye week stretch where maybe he could climb into that RB1 status when you've got a bunch of guys on the bench. Why don't you kick off your number two pick?
My number two is where I started thinking a little bit more on this. Breece was pretty much written in as soon as I wrote down the top 10 rookies for Dynasty headline, immediately wrote down Breece Hall, and then had to think a little bit on this next one. And I ended up going running back again with Kenneth Walker III up in Seattle, coming out of Michigan State, came out of nowhere, had a phenomenal year there. Not utilized a ton in the passing game there, but Michigan State really didn't utilize running backs a ton in the pass game. But I just think he's got a relatively easy path to being a starter. Chris Carson, you've seen pictures of his neck out there floating around the internet, and it's not great. So pretty much rule him out and not playing this year. And then you got Rashad Penny is the only one that's really in front of him, and he has yet to stay healthy for a full season. So I think Kenneth Walker could be thrown into that role right away and make a huge impact and never look back from there. Seattle's offense, yes, they're going to struggle this year with your boy Drew Lock slinging the pill around, but still, I think Seattle notoriously, look at all the years at Marshawn Lynch there. They want to get the running game going, want to utilize that run game, and Kenneth Walker could be a nice asset there and somebody that down the road, Seattle brings in another quarterback next year to take over and have some success with that offense. And you've got a Seattle running back that historically has been awesome for fantasy.
Yeah, once I got to this number 2 pick after Brees, that's actually what brought me to the question that I asked you of what do you prefer early on, running back or wide receiver? Because you could go either way
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. This was a tough spot.
I also went Kenneth Walker at 2.
Okay.
Just knowing that, yeah, Rashad Penny's there, but they took Kenneth Walker early. Rashad Penny seemed to be good in a half season role and still was kind of splitting touches, especially early on, whether it was, I guess Alex Collins.
Oh yeah.
Where's Homer Simpson?
What about DJ Dallas?
I mean, he was still splitting touches, so I can't see Rashad Penny necessarily taking over as the top back. Maybe he does week 1 just because he's familiar with the offense. But like you said, I mean, Pete Carroll loves the running back. We saw the impact that Marshawn Lynch made. That's the role that I'd imagine Kenneth Walker jumps into, is kind of that young Russell Wilson role where it's very run heavy, defensive centric type of an offense. And, you know, whether it's Locke, assuming he wins the job, or Geno Smith, whatever, or next year, they bring in a rookie. Again, you could run the same exact offense these next 2 years. And I think it's going to be Kenneth Walker healthy. Michigan State didn't throw him the ball that much, but he's got the skill set to do so. So I was flipping between a couple guys, but I had to go Kenneth Walker, just knowing that I'm going to have guaranteed usage this year, next year, the following, and maybe he won't. And he's just talent. Who knows if he lasts 6 years, but also 6 years from now, let's say you take one of these wideouts. Who knows if they're even still on your team 5-6 years from now. So I'm going to take the guaranteed production from Kenneth Walker here at number 2.
I like it. All right, Joe, we'll just keep going back and forth here. Who do you got at 3? I'm assuming this is where your run of wide receivers starts.
Yeah, I'm not going running back here. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. He was my easy number 1 receiver. Just going back to something that I said in our post NFL draft episodes, I have no freaking clue why Atlanta didn't take Wilson, why they would take Drake London. Wilson would be a perfect fit for that offense, but he'll be great here, or hopefully great here with the Jets. I mean, the Jets are going to have to find out now, but over the next 2 years, if Zach Wilson is the guy. And so that makes me think they're going to be throwing the ball around. They're going to be throwing it enough. I think he's a great complement to Elijah Moore as well. Different skill sets for the two guys. And who knows where Corey Davis fits in? I mean, is Corey Davis even going to be a factor here? He's now he's the de facto number 3 in that offense. I would think at this point, behind Wilson and Elijah Moore. So, I mean, personally, I wonder if Corey Davis is even draftable at this point. I mean, you could probably take him, but not high. So I certainly think Garrett Wilson is, he was my easy number 3 here as my number 1 receiver.
Yeah, so far we're chalk. So I have Garrett Wilson.
Rock chalk Jayhawk.
Boo. But no, pretty much all the same reasons you said. Again, going back to when I was talking about Breece Hall, I just think the Jets offense is going to take a step up this year. Garrett Wilson's that perfect wide receiver to throw into that offense to help out Zach Wilson, whether that is getting him the ball in space, throwing a deep ball. Garrett Wilson is phenomenal and can pretty much do it all. And like you said, he's a great complement to Elijah Moore on the other side of the field. So it'll be fun to watch. Wish I had him in Dynasty. I think former podcast host Rick has him. So
small dick Rick.
Shout out to you, Ricky. Ayo. But no, he's clearly the best wide receiver that was in this draft. And after this, I think there's a pretty significant drop off to the next wide receiver.
Yeah, this is where it can get. This is where there's going to be some debate. I'm imagining.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all going to have roughly the same guys in the top 10. It's just going to be where they fall and what our reasoning for them is.
Yeah.
My next one up is somebody that I think you're going to be able to start right off the bat and plug into your fantasy lineup due to necessity. Calvin Ridley's gone. Kyle Pitts is there. And it's Drake London. Drake London in Atlanta. It's going to be ugly, folks, but he's going to get a ton of use there. We've seen historically Atlanta wide receivers do well, so it might be a struggle the first year. He's going to get a lot of targets, but you just have to hope that a quarterback that's competent comes in next year, whether that maybe it is Desmond Ridder. Maybe Desmond Ridder does take a step forward and shows that he can be a quality starter. He's not going to be a superstar, but maybe he can just be that quality starter that can get him going. But again, we don't know what the future holds for Calvin Ridley. There was rumors that he wanted to be traded prior to all of his gambling issues coming to light. So this could be Drake London's offense. Could be Drake London's team for the future along with Kyle Pitts. That's a pretty nice 1-2 combo there. Again, it's going to be ugly, but I think eventually he'll be pretty solid to put into your lineup.
Our first discrepancy finally here at number 4. This is my number 2 overall receiver in this draft, and it's Treylon Burks. I think he can jump right into that AJ Brown role. They're very similar types of players in terms of size. AJ Brown's skill is off the charts in terms of just being a pure receiver, but similar in terms of athleticism, similar in terms of size. Treylon has the same type of, go get the ball types of skills that AJ Brown does have as well. And knowing that the only other guy there in Tennessee is Robert Woods, Bobby Trees. So I think Burks is going to be a day one starter. And, the fact that he played in the SEC, that's a big plus to me. He's facing the best defenders. He's facing the Derek Stingleys of the world. So that's a huge plus for me. The one concern I may have is it's been a concern in training camp so far, is he does have asthma.
Yeah, and I was going to say, that's why I moved. He would have been in this spot, but to me, that is a little bit of a concern until I hear that is resolved. That's why I'll just say where I have him at right now. I moved him down to 7 right now. Just because it scares me a little bit. Yeah. I want to see more on it before. But
thankfully they have the Broncos at home this year in November. So at least he's not in Denver with that issue. That may be one that he might have to possibly sit out. We'll see. But it's been a little bit of a concern, but he dealt with it also in college and still was extremely productive. So I like I said, he was my number 2 wide receiver behind Wilson going into the just overall wide receiver going into the draft. I can't pivot off that. Especially given the position that he's in, where he's going to be starting day one in Tennessee. So that's number 4 here.
Yeah. For somebody that has Treylon on their dynasty team, I like your ranking a lot better than mine. So hopefully yours pans out.
Lucky bastard.
Yes. All right.
This is mine.
Yeah. Yep.
Number 5, I've got Jameson Williams, receiver out of Bama. He's dealing with this ACL right now, but I think once he gets healthy, once he hits the field, he's going to jump right into that number 1 wide receiver spot. Amon-Ra St. Brown did show some really good stuff last year, but I think long-term, he's a lot more suited as a wide receiver too, where Jameson Williams can be that one on the other side of Amon-Ra long-term. So if he had not torn his ACL or if he had done that earlier in the year, I'd probably rank him as my number 2 receiver behind Garrett Wilson overall. But you obviously got the question marks of how is he going to come back from that ACL? When is he going to come back? And also the fact that he went to the Lions. Who's that QB going to be? Because I don't think Jared Goff is the long-term answer, but he's fast. He's athletic. He can get those jump balls. His receiver skills are off the charts. So talent alone, I rank him at 5 ahead of some of the other receivers that are out here.
Yeah, no, there's no question about his talents. It just scares me a little bit with him ending up in Detroit. Like you said, this year with Jared Goff was serviceable last year. Like you said, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a nice year. Hawkinson had a fairly decent year up until his injury stretch at the end of the season. So Williams could easily fit into this offense. ACL doesn't scare me at all. Today's medicine. He should be good to go. Just make sure you don't push him too early at all in training camp. But what does Detroit's quarterback situation look like after this
That's
year?
the bigger concern than the ACL.
Jared Goff is probably not long-term solution for them. This will probably be his last year there. And then are they going to be drafting Bryce Young? Are they going to be trying to find a veteran quarterback to come in and do that?
Why don't they should trade for Stafford. Perfect timing.
Yeah, he hasn't played there before. That worked out the first time around, but no,
Joey Harrington.
Yeah. Yes. But that's the only reason that scared me a little bit with him. I had Williams as my 6th, my 5 actually.
We'll get to your picks.
So I'm just saying I had him at 6. I'm going to jump to tell my 5 because you have your 5. My 5 is Chris Olave with the Saints. I like Chris Olave. He's had a pretty nice mandatory minicamp so far down there. You got Jameis Winston slinging the rock around. You know he's going to be throwing. So Michael Thomas has had a tough time staying healthy in the last couple of years. So we'll see what that looks like. Chris Olave could be their de facto number 1 wide receiver and get a ton of work right off the bat. Alvin Kamara is still there to take some of the heat off of Winston. So I like Chris Olave quite a bit. And that's why I had him up above Jameson, just because you kind of know what you're going to get with that Saints offense with Winston. And I think it's just going to be a little bit more consistent. Detroit can struggle on offense at times. So especially this year, I like Chris Olave there in the 5 spot.
Yeah, that's a little bit higher than I had him, obviously, but he's sitting here in the top 10.
All right. Why don't you, Jameson Williams is my number 6. Who you got there, Joe?
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to go. I got number 6. I guess I fit Drake London in here. Again, I don't love him as a prospect just because, I've got concern that he led the nation in contested catches. That sounds like a good thing. Just like when you see that stat, it can sound like a good thing, but that means he's not separating against Pac-12 defenses. That's why I can't put him higher than this. He didn't run the 40 at the combine. I think Pitts is a better red zone threat, but I have to put him at 6 because he's going to be a day 1 starter. They picked him in the top 10 for a reason, to use him. He's going to be a day 1 starter. He is still a red zone threat. I just don't know if I'm just down on him being picked as high as he was in this draft. I would love to put him at 3 if I thought he was worthy of it. I just don't think he is, but he is going to be a day 1 starter. That's why I have to put him. I put him below Williams because I don't think the talent of Drake London is there, but I put him ahead of some of these other receivers because it's a straight up fact. Day 1 starter. He's going to be putting up points right away. So I'm going to take Drake London at 6 somewhat. Well, actually, I shouldn't say somewhat, 100% reluctantly.
All right. So we are on to pick 7 here. You still on the wide receiver train? Any other positions jumping out at you at this point?
I do have another receiver here. And, I'm going to reach out a little bit to the sky. And I'm going to go Sky Moore. I mean, he's in the perfect landing spot in KC. Obviously, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, undoubtedly the best quarterback in the league at this point. Best quarterback coach combination in the league, no question. I've been listening to some of the receivers in the media, Greg Jennings, James Jones, TJ Hujamama. They all say that they think that he could end up being the most productive receiver in this draft. But I've got a few issues here with him. I mean, talent-wise, he should be jumping these guys, but does it happen day one where he jumps McCole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling? They just paid Juju Smith-Schuster in Kansas City. Second thing, Travis Kelce's the new number 1 target. He was a great number. He was 1A, 1B with when Tyreek Hill was there. Now he's the clear-cut number 1. So that's going to take production away from Sky Moore. Number 3, we've never seen really Mahomes work with a rookie receiver. I mean, McCole Hardman came in. He was a second-round pick. That hasn't really worked out. So Sky Moore, another second-round pick. I guess it's kind of might be another wait-and-see situation with him, but Hardman certainly has been a disappointment to this point as a second-rounder. And then number 4, and this is kind of a BS, but Corey Davis also came out of Western Michigan. Both receivers did. And Corey Davis has been without a doubt pretty big disappointment being the number 8 overall pick, or 6, 7, or 8 overall pick. So out of Western Michigan. So that shouldn't really play into my rankings, that doesn't really matter, but it's a thing. I mean, because you know who Western Michigan plays. It's all regional 2nd-tier schools. So we haven't seen Sky Moore play against some of the top-tier guys. So the learning curve may be a little bit longer. So I love Sky Moore's landing spot in terms of quarterback coach, but I don't love, but at the same time, I've got question marks, I guess, about the development of him and how quickly that may happen.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a question there. Again, just touching on my 7th, had Treylon Burks, but Sky Moore was my number 8 that I had down on my list here. So again, you got to love the landing spot in Kansas City. There's a ton of potential. Not a better landing spot as a rookie wide receiver with Patrick Mahomes being your quarterback long-term. Obviously, he's not going anywhere. So you have one of the top quarterbacks in the league that's going to be throwing the ball to you. So definitely like that a lot. But like you said, it's a huge question mark, which a lot of these guys are towards the back end of this top 10. There's a lot of questions with them. That's why they're not higher up the board, obviously, but you have to like the landing spot there, and he has all the chance in the world to make a huge impact. So I like that a lot. All right. Who's your number 8, Joe?
This is where I bring in my second Ohio State wide receiver, Chris Olave. Obviously major, strong, deep ball threat. Jameis does like throwing the ball downfield, so that's a plus for Olave and for his game. But we're not sure about the Michael Thomas status. If he's going to come back I think there's a 0% chance he comes back to be the player that he was, but he could still be a 90 catch guy. I don't think the talent left him when over the last 2 years. He's still going to have the same hands as he's had in the past. Maybe he lost a step, but can still turn into that kind of Larry Fitzgerald type role after Larry lost a step and steal a few catches from Olave. I also don't know exactly can we trust Dennis Allen as a head coach? You're going from Sean Payton to Dennis Allen. That's a very, very obvious drop off in coaching talent. So and there's obviously Kamara's also, he's still there. He'll be there hopefully for the long term. So my thing with Olave, I think there's some boom bust potential here. He could be boom bust like Deshaun Jackson, where it's more bust than boom, but when the boom happens, it's amazing. Or he could be more boom bust like Tyreek Hill, Odell in his prime, where there's more boom than bust. But both those guys, both Tyreek and Odell, would still have down games when they didn't have them, real long play. So Olave, I think he falls probably in between he could either be Deshaun Jackson or more of the Odell, Tyreek Hill type of player. That's the way that I'm looking at Olave.
Getting on the list here, Joe, why don't you kick off number 9?
Little Christian Watson action. Get a Packer in there finally. Could have taken any of these guys that I've named so far. But big, tall, fast receiver. He's got, I love his athleticism. I love his body and everything. So it seems like the tools are there, but Aaron sucks with rookies. That's where I've got major hesitation right away. Aaron Rodgers with rookies, not much of a track record. Last year, Amari Rodgers was their first receiver that they took. He had a total of 4 receptions last year. He was a second-round pick. That's not it apparently, I guess, with Aaron, it takes forever for things to click with rookie receivers. Now, he doesn't have a choice at this point but to click with rookies or unknown guys. But who knows how long it's going to take him? And then beyond that, what's after Aaron? Who knows if Aaron's going to be there beyond this year? And if Love has to step in, I like Christian Watson a lot less. So
yeah, we've already had reports out of some of the camps that Christian Watson was not looking very good, but it was also Jordan Love that was throwing the football. So it's kind of hard to look good, I feel like, with Jordan Love throwing the ball around. But again, it's just kind of a little bit of cause for concern there. Christian Watson's he's in my top 10. He rounded out the 10th spot. Do you have anything else to add, Joe, before I throw out my number 9?
No, that's about it for me on Christian.
All right. Well, my number 9 is, I personally think, the steal of the draft, somebody I was hoping the Bears were going to take, and they just never did. And if he wouldn't have been hurt for most of this last college season, he would have been in the first round without a doubt. And that's George Pickens out of Georgia. George Pickens, I think, is a phenomenal wide receiver, played on a national champion team. It was a huge integral part of that offense throughout his time in school. He's a burner, can run great routes, has good hands, can get up and catch the ball. And Pittsburgh wide receivers have a fantastic track record. Granted, that was with Big Ben there, and now you've got Mitch Kiss and Titties Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, which it sounds like so far both of them have had a pretty solid mini camp. You've got Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool in the mix there too, but I really like George Pickens, and I think he is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it'll be interesting to see. Deontay Johnson's in a contract year right now, what they do with him, what happens with Chase Claypool down the road, but I really like George Pickens. Again, a little bit of a question mark with that quarterback position between Mitch and Kenny. But again, I was torn between him and putting Christian Watson here. I have Christian Watson as my 10 spot, but again, like you said, how long is Aaron there for? If Aaron's there for a year or two, you had touched on that he struggles sometimes with rookie wide receivers and that trust factor. And that could be what ends up derailing Watson's career. If he can't get on the same page with Aaron earlier on, and then all of a sudden you have just a scrub there as your quarterback for the next few years. That's a good chunk of his career, and it definitely scares me a little bit.
It's going to be really interesting how this shakes out between Deontay with his contract coming up, Claypool, who seems to be a bit of a flake. And I mean, Siri, the talent is all there with Chase Claypool, but let's be honest, like he doesn't show up sometimes for some reason. I don't know if it's a commitment thing. I can't speculate on that, but seems to be a bit of a flake sometimes. I could definitely see Pickens jumping into a pretty high-end role with the Steelers, even if they bring Deontay Johnson back. Who says by next year Pickens isn't that number 2 and they throw Claypool into the slots? I mean, why shouldn't they? So I mean, I was really, really torn on putting Claypool there Pickens there because the talent has always been there with Pickens. It's just been, like you said, like you mentioned, the injury at Georgia, but he did come back in the college football playoff.
Yeah, no, he looked great.
And he put on a bit of a show. He had that one really, really nice diving catch on a seam route down. I mean, it was 30, 40 yards downfield, diving catch. That's the kind of stuff that you need out of a really high-end receiver. He showed that post-injury, so I think he's 100% back. I love George Pickens. I think that's a great pick there. I ended up switching up positions here at my number 10 spot. I had to go back to running back, and I had to go James Cook. I love that. I mean, Devin Singletary, this is a purely dynasty pick here. This is not a redraft pick. This is pure dynasty. Devin Singletary's on a contract year. Zach Moss finished last season as a healthy scratch for multiple weeks.
That's good, right?
He's seems like he's really in the picture for the future. But I mean, I look at it, they took a running back in the second round. You're not wasting that pick on a running back if you're not going to use them. I mean, we really saw an increase in year 2 in Green Bay of AJ Dillon, even after they signed Aaron Jones to a pretty decent sized contract. So, you know, they're going to get their use out of Cook. I would imagine that they're not going to be running Josh Allen as much as they had, or as much as they have been up to this point, given that they signed him to a 6-year deal. They're going to want to take that load, quite a bit of a load off his plate. And Cook is a decent receiving back. So I really like James Cook's brother of Dalvin.
Yep.
So the genes are right.
I believe they're Wranglers.
Shout out to Brett Favre at the AmFam Championship this past weekend as well, or 2 weekends ago, I guess.
Weekends, yeah.
So yeah, I like James Cook as the clear number 3 running back in my eyes.
Yeah, no, he's definitely the clear number 3 running back in this draft. I was tempted to put him into that 10 spot, have Pickens up there at 9, and then just kind of bump Watson out. But I need to see it from Buffalo first before I'm comfortable putting him into the top 10. I mean, you like the draft pedigree there, drafting him in the second round. It's not like it's a third, fourth round guy that they don't really have to put into the lineup. But Josh Allen just runs so much on the goal line, and that's huge for fantasy, is having your running back get touchdowns. And if Josh Allen is stealing some of those at the goal line, it makes it tough. We've seen Devin Singletary was fairly productive down the stretch last year, but again, what just isn't finding the end zone, because that's just what they do. Josh Allen's he's a phenomenal runner when you get the ball in his hand down in that goal line. So
and that's why I brought up I'm hope, or you know, as anybody that takes Cook, the hope is, given that they gave him a 6-year contract, they want him to live out that 6-year contract. Yes. And the only way you're going to do that is by not
taking him healthy.
not taking hits from 330-pound linemen at the goal line. Because, everybody's going full speed, full bore.
Send it in, Jerome.
Send it in, Jerome. That's what I meant to mention about Mick. He's mentioned that too. Shout out to our previous podcast. Another thing that he said during my speech for winning the sleeveless green jacket. But point being about James Cook, that's got to be the hope. If you're going to take James Cook, you got to look for that kind of, that's because otherwise he's basically Devin Singletary 2.0 or worse.
Yep. Two guys I just want to throw out real quick. I don't have a lot on them, just kind of guys that I think their future is fairly bright, but they do not have a clear path in the first year, maybe even 2 years, depending on their situation. One is Trey McBride, tight end for the Arizona Cardinals. He's stuck behind Zach Ertz right now. So Zach got a new contract there. So we'll see. He's definitely somebody to stash on your bench right now. I think he's going to be just great. He's big body tight end. That's great pass catcher and integral part of, I believe he was at Colorado State. Is that, the old Rams, but I'll have to double check on that. And then the other guy is Georgia running back Zamir White. Zamir White was kind of under the radar in college, and he is sitting behind Josh Jacobs. Raiders declined to pick up Josh Jacobs' fifth-year option. So just another guy to kind of watch. He has torn his ACL twice, so injuries are definitely a concern there, but somebody that could potentially get thrown into that Raiders offense next year and even spell Josh Jacobs at times this year. So definitely have him on your watch list. If you have extra spots, stash him. He was somebody that I had coming up from our campus to Canton league and just couldn't really find a spot for him on my roster right now. So I know, Joe, you'll be talking about him. I'm sure you picked him up, but
very happy to pick him up. Yeah. We'll be honest.
Yeah. So those are two guys that I wanted to throw out there. Kenny Pickett also has sounded like he's been having a pretty good camp. He's challenging Mitch for starting spot, and Pittsburgh, I mean, let's face it, Big Ben was a fantasy option for quite a few years in there until more recently. So Kenny Pickett could be somebody that is mobile and has a great running back, great wide receivers to throw the ball to. So he is set up for success there in Pittsburgh too. Somebody to just kind of stash on your bench.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be the first quarterback you would take in a dynasty out of the rookies. Where would you take some of these other quarterbacks? I mean, look at Malik, looking at Carolina, looking at Desmond Ridder, any of these guys, Bailey Zapp to take over from Mac Jones in New England.
Yeah, not quite on the Bailey Zapp train yet, but no, if I was going to take anybody else, it'd be Malik Willis.
Would you? Okay. So at what point, I mean, is that just a last second stash, if anything? I mean, he was a third round pick, so it's not like they're guaranteeing him any playing time.
Not at all. So it would be very, very late in your draft. You're taking two quarterbacks ahead of him. So that would be a last round of a startup draft. If I'm looking in a dynasty draft, you're in your second year, so it's just incoming rookies. Third round, maybe. There's a lot of guys I think I would take
just rookies.
Just rookies,
yeah.
Yes. Third round, just rookies, yes.
Okay, so one guy that we did not mention, unless I completely missed it, Jahan Dotson. Did you bring him up? So, I mean, I know obviously in Washington, they're going through this Terry McLaurin deal of wondering, is he going to be here or not? I think they end up coming to some sort of an agreement where Terry does end up getting paid, because who else are they really paying right now? Nobody. It's a talent deficient team. So
no.
I think they do end up coming to probably a long-term deal. My reserves on Dotson, I think he's probably he's a top 10 talent amongst these rookies that we mentioned.
Yeah, for sure.
He's just in a shitty situation where now it's Carson Wentz, and let's say it's another situation like it was in Indy where Wentz is gone after a year. Who's going to jump in next year? So
No,
that's why I didn't even bring him up, but I feel like he needs to be mentioned in this honorable mention, given that he was a first round wide receiver.
yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there that the talent is all there, but I need to see something from the Washington organization before I'm wanting to go all in on one of their wide receivers. Terry McLaurin has all the talent in the world, but he's been borderline wide receiver too the last couple of years just with their quarterback situation. And outside of an RG3 rookie season where RG3 was pretty solid, they haven't had a quarterback at all to support a wide receiver. So until I see that, I can't go in on a Washington wide receiver. It's too painful.
I will say Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk he was fine.
I have to throw him into the underrated category. Since he left, look at where that Washington franchise, whatever three names you want to call them, look at that torment that they've never figured out that quarterback position since he left. At least the Vikings have been stable.
Yeah.
Since picking him up.
That's a good point.
It's not like I'm going to be out here saying Kirk Cousins to the Hall of Fame
for president.
You'd have to go back to DC for that. But seriously, it's like he actually kept that franchise stable, which they've been completely unstable since and were unstable before. So I feel like they kind of screwed the pooch there, given how weak that NFC East has been. If they would have given Kirk a decent, halfway decent contract, they probably could have won that division a couple times.
Yeah.
I got one last question for you, and then I'll turn it back, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thoughts on John Mechie with Davis Mills as his QB? He tore that ACL pretty early on, so he should be ready for training camp. He hasn't participated yet. John Mechie Jr. out of Bama. What are your thoughts on him this year and going forward? Is Davis Mills a concern for you? Is the Texans organization a concern? Or is Davis Mills a plus for you? And I guess where do you see him kind of fitting into the fold there?
Houston organization is definitely a concern. Davis Mills was actually halfway decent last year. And I mean, he pretty much had Brandon Cooks, and that was it. Cooks is still there, but no, John Mechie should get a chance there and was pretty solid at Alabama this last year prior to that injury. So if he can find some rapport with Davis Mills, he could sneak into a flex spot here and there this season and long-term maybe be a wide receiver too for you. It's Houston, man. It's just a shit show there. And you know that they're going to fuck it up somehow one way or another. And hopefully not. But again, Davis Mills was pretty solid last year. But again, the Houston organization could all of a sudden turn around and be like, nope, we have the number one overall pick, Davis Mills. Sorry, bud, you threw for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, but we need somebody to put butts in the seats, and we need to take somebody else here. So it just, you don't know what to expect with that organization. And then you bring in another rookie and have to get on the same page. And
they do have New England personnel basically running that team now. I believe their GM.
Yeah, he came over from New England.
And there's some other like high-end exec from New England. It's
ownership,
still that McNair ownership is a train wreck. I mean, we saw how they handled the Deshaun situation, which they ended up getting a nice haul for somebody that's not going to play probably this year at a minimum. So, hey, finally they got something right, it looks like.
Yeah.
But
no, we'll see. But yeah, no, he's definitely somebody to, I don't know, what did you say? Probably like a third round of your dynasty draft. Otherwise, mid to late teens for a startup dynasty draft.
I would probably go lower in a dynasty draft. But straight up rookie draft, rookie dynasty, mid-teens I'm fine with that.
Yep.
I don't know. Regular dynasty draft, I'd probably go a little lower than that. I'd probably go. We could get fourth, fifth round just because I don't know what that quarterback situation is going to be. But I'd take a flyer on him in a rookie draft in the mid-teens. That's where I'm at.
Sounds good. All right, so that will wrap up this episode. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Mondays and Wednesdays typically are live on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe there. Click that alert button so that way you know when episodes drop, when we go live. Got the chat fired up on there so you can answer or ask us any questions. We will answer them on the pod. Can be about any topics we're discussing, any other questions that you have, random questions, funny questions, whatever you want. We'll take a look and answer them. Otherwise, Gel can be found at Das Gel. That's at DASJEL. It can be found at Das JPEC at DASJPEC. Send us any DMs there for questions. More than happy to answer them on the next pod or hit you back with an answer there. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send a screenshot of that review. Get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail. Again, check out our YouTube. You can see that sticker. Showed that a little earlier on. And
hit up that.
I'll show it again. That's a nice sticker there you can get for writing us a review. Take 30 seconds out of your day.
Might need to start plugging another Twitter page if I get one for the fireplace.
Yeah.
Das Fire.
Just send fire pics all day. Yes.
That's asking for trouble.
That sounds like a lot. So we should definitely do that. But Joe, where else can they find us at?
Hit us up on our presenting sponsor, Anchor, both available on the web and on your mobile device. Over the web, anchor.fm. On your cellular, just search Anchor on Google Play or your Apple App Store. They allow us to do all of our editing and everything that we do, descriptions, topic names, episode names, everything for free. They allow us to put in all sorts of sound bites that you may be looking forward to on this episode for free. And they also allow us to present this beauty over to you for free as well. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. Just search Dead Arm Sports when you get on there. It should be the first thing that pops up. Hit subscribe. Hit that alert button. It's just a little bell. Hit that, and then you swish. You should be getting notifications then whenever we go live or whenever a new episode is posted, new video is posted. So make sure you subscribe to that as well.
Again, appreciate everybody out there listening. If you could tell somebody you know about the podcast, you would appreciate that greatly. So we will be back with you a little bit later on in the week. Should have some fun topics, preview the Travelers Championship this weekend on the East Coast. So get our picks going. Hopefully I can make up a deficit and ride my hot streak of US Open victories.
If only our major picks counted towards the Drew Locks.
Yeah.
You'd be a little bit closer.
I would indeed, but I'll tune in later this week and you'll find out who I am taking. Joe, close us out.
Mama says alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth, but they ain't got no toothbrush. I was supposed to be a water boy line, and I just fucked it so bad. What do you want to save this as?
I'll
top
just
10 rookies or something?
Yeah, top 10 rookies. That works. Whoa. Then yeah, we'll do Travelers for Wednesday's recording. Any other news that pops up? Maybe we could throw a mailbag.
I was gonna write down a couple ideas that I had. I was thinking if we did another fantasy, we could do.
I'm actually I'm in the mode right now where I'm enjoying. This was a fun episode. I love talking. I'm back in the fantasy mindset right now. So
big time. I was thinking guys that I guess this would be more redraft, but guys that are like trending up, trending down.
Okay.
And we each pick like 5 up, 5 down or something.
Yeah. No, I'd be game with that.
I don't know that. I don't unless some big, a ton of news comes out or something.
Yeah. No, that sounds good to me. So I'd be game for doing that.
Yep.
It'd be fun too to do an episode coming up where we just like are either on the same team or else have separate teams to do like a sleeper bot draft, and we could probably screen share that onto our YouTube live page too. Somehow,
should be
I
able.
would think.
I know. I think we could on Zoom.
Yeah, because we should be able to do that, and then because Zoom goes right off of YouTube, right?
I think the Zoom would go like I would just have to. I'd have to figure out how exactly that would work. Because I think there's a way to like screen share. Here, let me look.
Yeah. We can play around with it too, but I just thought that would be kind of cool. And then we could like tweet out like, hey, live mock draft tonight.
Let me do a screen share right now. See how does it look on. How does that look on your screen? Do you still see me?
Yeah, you're in a small box up in the corner, but I can see like
if I went this, if I did this, if we did this and then this, like the main screen would be our draft.
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet because then people could see like who went in front of us and who, that would be, I don't know. I think that would be pretty cool. And then because we could pause the draft too, like when we're on the clock and then take as much time as we want. And then we can talk out our strategy. Like if we're like, oh, we're going to go running back here just because there's a nice crop of wide receivers that are going to be coming up. And then we can just kind of react and be like, fuck, they took our guy or whatever. Fuck you, team 7 or whatever. And
so could I go from here? I wonder if from here, I don't know if. Yeah, I might have to play around. Let's see. Oh, up here. Oh, so from here I could go live on YouTube.
Okay.
And then, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, I thought that would be something kind of cool. And then it's easy for us to do and share. And then one person can just kind of take control of the picks and then the other one can just kind of go through.
Probably have to be me.
Yeah, probably with it
going off my YouTube screen. Yeah.
Which is, that's fine. It's not a huge deal. So, but no, that would be,
I like that. So we could do that. Maybe
we could do that like even on Monday or something next week or whatever.
So we could do then Monday, like recap of PGA recap and then do that for like maybe we do news and then PGA Monday and then this could be Tuesday episode or depending on how much news we have and just kind of play around with it.
No, that sounds good to me.
So just trying to think of like when we want to. So what I'm thinking would be like some easy episodes would be like we could do like 16 fucking episodes of each division or one. So all 8 for fantasy, then all 8 for just like regular football.
Yeah.
So that could eat up a ton of time.
Yeah.
Of the schedule.
Yeah. If there isn't like a ton of news coming out, and obviously there's going to be a lot more news coming out once July hits and they start up training camp and everything towards the end. But for now, it's just like there's not a ton of news.
When do you think most people actually do drafts? That's not till August. But we'd have to do our fantasy stuff probably before we do, or would we want, or do we want to do that after? I'm trying to think of like when most drafts are going on. If it's like
I think
right
most
before
drafts
the season.
I think most drafts are in August. So it might not be a bad idea though, just to kind of, I mean, because we can do a bunch of different mock drafts and whatnot and kind of say like, oh, earlier in the season, this guy was going in the 8th round and all of a sudden his hype train's going, he's up in the 5th round or whatever. So people, it might be nice just to kind of throw out names now so people kind of get aware of just where people are going.
We could do fantasy first.
Mm-hmm.
And then do division breakdowns.
Yeah.
And then also like as news filters in, we could just throw in like, okay, obviously like Terry McLaurin said he's not going to commit to Washington. It looks like he's going to sit all season. Where do we now put the Jahan Dotson?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we need to do something like that during the division episodes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think we try to get Ricky to come out of retirement and do another stable episode too.
That's nice. He still got his equipment.
With the
I would
Southern
assume.
accent.
Does Alex still have his equipment?
No, I think he sent it back right away.
He?
I don't even know if it made it out of the box.
That's right, because like right after we all ordered, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna dip." Yeah. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing this. I'm gonna hit upload here.
Yeah, so that way I can at least get you the first one since it's already 10:15. Still exhausted from Michigan.
I'm so glad I took today off. Did you have to work? Did you work today?
Yeah. Back at it.
Tomorrow is gonna be a motherfucker.
Do you have to go in the office?
Yep.
Nice.
It's not nice. Really sucks.
Yeah.
Like I've applied for a few jobs today.
Nice.
So
nothing wrong with that.
On the hunting train, I got the guy, or one of the jobs I applied for today, the guy responded to me like 20 minutes later, and he asked me like, he's like, so this is the compensation. Like, he's like, I'm just gonna be straight up. Like, this is the compensation that we're looking for. And I'm like, well, that's quite a bit lower than what I want.
Yeah.
Like this is my total compensation between salary plus my bonus last year. He's like, well, best I could do is this. Plus there's potential for an up to 8% bonus. So it ends up adding up to like a couple grand. If I were to get that full 8%, it'd be like a couple grand less. But I'd be working mostly hybrid at least.
That's good.
And it'd be like right down the street.
Oh,
it's like nice. It's like be like an 8-minute drive.
Oh, that's not bad.
So I'm like, I don't want to take a pay cut, but a couple grand over a full year, like it's not that much. Plus, then I don't have to
deal with all the other BS,
all this
driving into work that's
deal with right now. Plus, be able to work hybrid. Plus, I'm like really pissed off.
Yeah.
So I might just be like, let's have this conversation then, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I think I could all at least just have the conversation with the guy.
Yeah. No,
and
for
be
sure.
like,
Feel it out.
Let's get to the offer stage and then decide from there.
No, it's not bad.
So that's kind of where I'm at on that. And then I applied for a few different ones today.
Nice.
But that one, he literally wrote back like 10 minutes after I hit apply. I was like, hey, buddy, want a job?
That's sweet.
Yeah, so we'll see. But I think I'm gonna hit that guy up tomorrow and be like, let's talk at like 4:30.
Yeah.
And
nothing wrong with that.
Go from there. These are uploading now. I created a new folder. Just Perfect. Hit me up when you got the first one on.
Okay.
released.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and obviously already ate, so I will crank that out now. So we'll have to wait for that.
I made kung fu chicken and
Nice.
a ton of veggies, and then
That sounds amazing.
it was so good. And then some veggie samosas, just like little Indian pastries.
Okay.
Just we're able to throw into the air fryer.
Nice.
Really good. First time I'd had those. Really good. But top 10 rookies is up. US Open's on its way. So
Perfect. I'll go ahead and get that done.
shoot me a T. What do you, sorry, I want to write this down. What are you thinking for next 2 episodes?
So
Do you think we
Wednesday,
can, I mean, are we really going to be able to do a full episode unless there's more live fallout? For all golf for the Thursday release?
I'm thinking right now, unless there's a ton of news, we probably just do golf preview at the end and then do like the 5 players that are up, 5 down. Maybe just
So then what do we do
one.
what do we do Friday? Or do we just not do a Friday?
Yeah, I mean, we could see if other news comes out, or else maybe we just do the mock draft for a Friday episode too, or something, and then next week we just kind of
Figure it out
from there too. So yeah, we can kind of see what we're feeling and whatnot.
I don't know how much more we can really say about Liv.
No,
other than like this guy, like if Kepka
yeah, unless
goes,
players
like what
leave.
else can we say? Like Kepka's gone now.
Yeah.
There's not much more we can say. Live fallout. 5 trending up and down. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'll try to keep a running list.
Yeah, same here. Now that we're not golfing and getting shit faced, I'll be able to kind of keep track of news articles.
Yeah. All right, both my episodes are up, so go to town, sir.
Sounds good. I'll text you when I get done.
All right, man.
All right, later.
Oh shit! I never stopped recording this. Gonna have some editing to do on the video end.